Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It is still in the description below. It is still your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Email me for pricing. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. Today we're discussing a watch launched in 2013, and according to Waco and Robert Yan Brewer, both scholars of superior caliber to my own, this watch was made from roughly 2013 to 2015 with somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 examples produced, which is to say it is rare by Moonwatch standards. And it, technically, is the Omega Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch racing dial, but everyone calls it the Tintin. Now the watch is a standard Moonwatch externally, so in steel, 42 millimeters in diameter. It measures 14.5 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, case alone, 48.5 millimeters from end link to end link, 54.1 millimeters with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now on my wrist, it wears like a modern Moonwatch, which is to say it's a fairly large timepiece, and given that the case geometry hasn't really changed since 1964, this timepiece must have seemed gargantuan when the astronauts of the 60s and 70s first adopted it for use. In fact, it was in 1965 that the Speedmaster Professional 105012 was first certified for spaceflight by NASA itself, even though privately owned Speedmasters had flown prior. And this watch is everything that a modern Speedmaster Pro certified by NASA today would be, with the exception of the dial. We'll get to that in a moment. Because it does have extended end links, and at 54.1 millimeters across the wrist, it's broad. I recommend it for at least a 15 centimeter circumference wrist on the bracelet. Put it on a strap, and a 14 centimeter circumference wrist can wear it. Again, my wrist is 16. Taking a look at the bracelet, solid end link, conforming profile to mate it to the case. We have these ovoid cross-section links, and they're polished outboard. Across the top, you can see there's a little bit of a taper down from the end link to the clasp. We have staggered link size, shape, alignment, and you can see differential polish and finish. This is a relatively modern Moonwatch bracelet because the removable links are fixed by screws, which is very important because it makes it easier to remove those individual removable links. A little bit difficult to do when you have a block and a punch. With the removable screw fixed links, you can just do it with a jeweler's screwdriver. Now you will want a strap tool, however, because there are actually two pairs of divots in the clasp. So you can use the strap tool to move the spring bar in and out to fine tune the fit. It's about 2.5 millimeters of in or out adjustment. You have to press both triggers to pop the clasp open. So one is not enough. Press them both and it will open. It is thick gauge steel, and you can see that is true as well of the clasp. The definition of the engravings still deep and sharp. This is a well-preserved watch. Taking a look at the case band, it has not changed a lot since that first Speedmaster Professional introduced the 42 millimeter lyre lugged crown guard profile back in 1964. So we've got that crown guard profile, really a shear guard for the pump pushers, the chronograph, and the crown. The lyre style lugs, so-called because they are outwardly beveled but also inwardly beveled. We have a thin satin finished case band, and those bevels flare at the lugs. They thin out over the midcase, but you can still see there is a polished bevel in the midcase. The bezel is polished on its underside. It has quite a bit of an outcropping cantilever. And then we have an anodized aluminum tachymeter insert, which can be used in conjunction with the chronograph to gauge the speed of an object. So let's say we have a airplane starting a course. It passes the start cone. We're at the Reno Air Races. And when that airplane passes the kilometer, I stop the watch. I look at the bezel. That airplane was traveling 400 kilometers per hour. User conversion factors, you can use it for miles per hour. And you can see that the watch has the original thermoplastic style crystal specified by NASA. And the reason is that this plexiglass, which you can see creates a lovely distortion off axis. Although it is easier to scratch than sapphire, it's a lot harder to shatter. And above all, NASA did not want free-floating sapphire or glass in zero gravity, so you get the shatter-resistant Hesalite instead. And if you look carefully, you can see that it has a tiny little Omega logo over the hands. That's always the signature of these factory Hesselite crystals. And by the way, you can easily remove most scratches with a pencil eraser, so don't sweat about the scratches. And you can also see the feature that defines this watch, which is the seconds track outboard, making it easy to read seconds and fractions of seconds. Officially, this was not Tintin branded. Unofficially, it was going to be a Tintin collaboration. And again, Robert Jan Broer and Waco are the authorities on this, but it was very much designed to be released as a co-promotion with the Tintin comics. Well, that fell through, and so this became a racing dial, but nod, nod, wink, wink, we know better. Taking a quick look, and by the way, if you're wondering what this has to do with Tintin, there is a rocket ship in the comics that has this exact pattern in these exact colors. White varnished hands on a matte dial base for glare resistance, plenty of luminescence, including the seconds hand, so you know the watch is running, and you can gauge the seconds, at least roughly, in the dark. The sub-registers are all dished. And the other feature on this model that's unique to the Tintin is that on the reverse side, and you can see that this was a sparsely worn example, the normal spiel about flight qualification by NASA and being the first watch worn on the moon, that is here in red lacquer instead of the conventional black, so the red is specific to the Tintin. If you're wondering what's underneath, it's a seahorse. Why is there a seahorse on a Speedmaster? This isn't a Seamaster, people always ask. Well, when it debuted back in 1957, Seamaster didn't necessarily mean dive watch, it meant water-resistant watch, and being water-resistant, that first Speedmaster reference CK2915 was considered to be part of the Seamaster collection. So the first Speedmaster was a Seamaster, and every example since has had the hippocampus or the seahorse. Inside we have the Lemania-based movement. It's based on the Lemania 1873 Abauche. This is the movement certified for use by NASA. The watch is usable not only for spaceflight, but for extravehicular activity, spacewalks. The movement, manual wind, is double tough, tested at impulse shock of 5,000 G, 48-hour power reserve, 6 beats per second, 18 joules. It has one of the crispest cam function selector systems you will ever encounter. From a tactile standpoint, it is indistinguishable from the caliber 321 column wheels. That has not always been true of the caliber 861s and 1861s, but as of the last 15 years or so, it's definitely the case. It also uses a lateral clutch because a lateral clutch is more shock resistant than a vertical clutch. That is why it is employed. Finally, the watch is 50 meters water resistant. People ask, why isn't it more water resistant? Well, if it were 100 meters, it would probably have trouble dealing with airlocks, which is probably the reason it has never been a screw-down crown, highly water-resistant watch, though the scuttlebutt is, if the watch has been recently water-tested, a modern Moonwatch can be used for surface swimming. And if you love this one, reach out to me. I am Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.